Night had just fallen when Israeli settlers attacked the Palestinian village of Jit. How terrifying for the families who live there. They say it took 2 hours for the army to come. A security camera shows a homeowner barricading his door. Then balaclava-wearing settlers attack a car with what looked like iron bars and gasoline before setting it on fire. Another camera shows the settlers entering a house and dousing it with fuel before lighting a match. This morning, villagers were assessing the damage and thinking of the young man who was killed and those injured.
It was like a war launched against us. There were more than 100 settlers. We live in a peaceful village. We've witnessed attacks before, but not in such a brutal and organised way.
The Orman family home was badly damaged. I'm not normally scared of settlers, says Dima, but they had weapons and might have shot me. The Israeli government condemned the attack, but it follows months of such violence, tolerated if not encouraged by far-right ministers who are themselves settlers. Settlements and settler violence are increasing under this Israeli government. The UN says since October, at least 114 Palestinians have been killed in settler attacks in the West Bank, of which there have been 1,143 since the start of the war in Gaza. According to Peace Now, so far in 2024, Israel has declared nearly 6,000 acres as state land which can be settled, compared to just 5,000 acres in the previous 19 years. The British Foreign Secretary, visiting Jerusalem with his French counterpart, said Prime Minister Netanyahu had promised an investigation.
I hope that that investigation can ensure that those who've engaged in this settler violence over the course of the last 24 hours are brought to justice. And I raised a few weeks ago, when I was on the West Bank, that both the violence and the expansion that we have seen over recent times is unacceptable.
There were more Israeli attacks in Gaza today. The Americans are talking up the chances of a peace deal being discussed in Qatar. But until and unless it happens, dozens of Palestinians are being killed daily. In Jit, they buried 23-year-old Rashid Mahmoud Sadr, killed by the settlers last night. It was more than his father could bear. Even if there is a ceasefire in Gaza, Israel has ensured that the expansion of illegal settlements will make an enduring two-state solution next to impossible. The Palestinian national poet Mahmoud Darwish wrote, "We suffer from an incurable malady, hope. The extreme settlers are doing their best to impose on the Palestinians a brutal remedy."
Well, earlier I spoke to William Schomburg, who heads the International Committee of the Red Cross delegation in Gaza. He has spent most of the last 18 months in Gaza, and I began by asking him about the decline that he's seen since the beginning of the war.
I mean, the level of destruction that you see within Gaza today is frankly shocking. Prior to the conflict, I mean, whole neighborhoods that were full of life are now totally devoid of humanity. They've been left in total ruins, and really you just see in many areas across Gaza rubble and destruction as far as the eye will let you. And
you work for the ICRC. Under the Geneva Convention, the International Committee of the Red Cross is supposed to be protected. Has that been the case at all?
Operating today in the conflict in Gaza is extremely challenging for a variety of different reasons, and the prevailing insecurity is one of the biggest obstacles that inhibits us from being able to meet as many humanitarian needs as we would like to. Nevertheless, we've been able to try and ensure that civilians receive the assistance that they so desperately require.
But your compound itself has come under attack, hasn't it?
There was an incident that took place just outside of one of the compounds that we operate in the south of the Gaza Strip, and it was partially damaged. But we have, of course, raised this in our bilateral confidential dialogue with the parties to the conflict, and it is imperative that the ICRC, like all neutral, independent humanitarian actors, be enabled to operate safely.
Tell us about what was it like when you were there? It was hit.
I mean, obviously shock, a large amount of fear. I mean, scenes of panic, dead bodies in front of us, very painful. To even remember it now, the level of panic and fear, and a lot of blood.
And what are the images or the stories, that's the right word, that you remember most, that stay most with you now that you've come out?
It's difficult to pick one after such a long period of time. I think that driving through cities like Khan Yunis after the end of the major hostilities that took place there earlier this year, and seeing the scale of the destruction and an entire city that is now really no longer able to exist as it previously did, I think was particularly difficult.
And have you had any interaction with the IDF, with the Israeli Defense Force?
So the International Red Cross, the ICRC, we maintain a bilateral confidential dialogue with all parties to the conflict wherever we work.
Sure.
And that's a very important part to how we operate. It allows us the space and the confidentiality to be able to raise the concerns that we have.
And do they listen? Are they understanding? Do they show any empathy for what they've created?
I think it's very important that we have a channel of communication with the IDF and with all parties to the conflict.
What needs to happen now, right now, for this thing to get better?
The humanitarian needs on the ground urgently need to be met. And I think that it's without doubt that, of course, a cessation to the hostilities would be welcome.
People that you work with, that you speak to there, do they, every time there's a negotiation in Qatar, are they really hopeful that it might yield results, or have they just given up?
I think there's always hope. Sometimes there's not a huge amount of optimism.
William Schoenberg, thank you very much.
Thank you.